Greetings and salutations, everyone! My name is Fire Mage, and welcome back to Rimworld Ascension Take 2, Episode 58. If you enjoy this episode, please remember to like and subscribe, and as always, mod list is down in the description. And with that, let's get on to the episode. Picking up where we left off last time, what are my plans for today? Well, if you will recall, in the last episode, we ended on powering up our nuclear reactor for the first time. That means today we will be working on nuclear weapons. Of course, we still have 1.9 days before we actually get the enriched uranium we need to make a nuclear bomb. So, in the meantime, I do have a handful of projects to work on. First of all, we are going to finish our multi-analyzer research. After that, fabrication, so we can make some satellites. But in terms of what our constructors will be doing, they will be continuing work on upgrading all of our vehicles, as there are still a handful that I want to get on each of these. But there is another project, a building that has been neglected for quite a while, that building being the Ideology Room. Now, I plan to pretty much completely overhaul this building. I started last episode, but didn't really say anything about it because it was simply mining out the mountain. But today, we will be completely revamping it from the ground up, which will admittedly require us to do a little bit of rearranging like so. And once this is all torn out, we will go ahead and design the new building. And there we go. The multi-analyzer is researched. Now, unfortunately, we can't actually select fabrication just yet, as we need to build the multi-analyzer first. But we can go ahead, get started on that, and that will require us to rip out these 4 research counters. And then once that's done, we can slap in the multi-analyzer. And there we go. The old ideology building has been fully removed, the vehicles upgraded, and most importantly, our multi-analyzer has been built. So, starting off, we will research fabrication, which should, if I am correct, allow us to build some satellites to launch into space. But down here on the ground, we still have to continue our work. So, our vehicles still need to continue being upgraded. Now, the mules have one last unique upgrade, that being the exterior engine. However, as we have found out from the Battle of Tuzla, that is an awful idea. They will immediately be hit by mortar shells and rendered unable to fight. So we won't be doing that. Mule 2 will be getting upgraded cargo capacity. Mule 1 shall be getting no more upgrades, as it is decent enough as it is. The Roadkill will be getting upgraded speed, since it is so painfully slow, moving only at 2.5 tiles per second. It's a bit of a yikes. And the Highwayman will be getting an improved turret, which will give it more accuracy, more fire rate, and smoke pop canisters so that it can deploy a smoke screen. Of course, thanks to the Roadkill, we will need to go ahead and queue up an engine block. A little bit expensive, but nothing we can't handle. And finally, the ideology area. And this is where we are really going to have to get to work. So, starting off, we need to set up our pews so that we actually have somewhere to sit. Starting off, we will do just a little something like this. 6 of them should do. Then we will put an ideogram right here. We'll put the lectern right behind it, but that is currently occupied by these collapsed rocks, as annoying as that is. Then we will put a steel reliquary here, and then we'll put the last one behind the pew. We also need to go ahead and set up some pillars, or columns, I believe, to be specific, which we will go ahead and do here, 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 and here. That should work just fine. And finally, the concrete walls. Now, if I'm correct, that should be all we need to do in terms of the building shape. And the final bit we have to add in, obviously, the floor. Now, normally, I would use some sort of fancy tile. However, concrete cannot be used to make any of these tiles. So, we will instead be doing carpet. And we will just keep it a simple red carpet so that we can have a little bit of color in the colony. Little something like that. And that is the new ideology building in all of its glory. So with the upgraded ideology building being built and the vehicles, that should keep our constructors busy for a while. And in the meantime, it is actually time for us to do a little bit more work on our uniforms for our military. Because I have found out that building them out of plain leather is significantly superior to cloth. Just for reference, a cloth frontier uniform only gives 7.2 sharp protection. Not bad, considering it's literally just the most basic uniform made of cloth. But if we make it out of plain leather, that little number goes up to 16.2 sharp protection. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that difference is quite important. So, we are going to go ahead and queue up a handful of those to replace our old ones. Because I think that is a good idea. A good resource investment. We have been saving up all of our plain leather. I think it's time for us to start utilizing it. And fabrication is researched. Now, here's the real good question for our next one. Do we do rocket swarm launchers, or do we do some stuff with the Brave New Frontier? And I'm gonna be honest, I think we're gonna go with the Brave New Frontier. While the rocket swarm turrets would be very good against the large hordes that we get attacking us, our rocket artillery trucks kind of fill the same niche right now, so this isn't a super critical problem that we need to solve. However, getting carapace armor is something we need to do because it is very good. Just the basic steel armor has a sharp protection value of 63%. However, as you can see here, we can make it out of depleted uranium, which gets it up to 98%. And the heavy carapace armor, if we were to build it out of uranium, is 119%. Essentially, making our infantry borderline unkillable to small arms fire, which is what I want to do. That would be very good. And now that we have the fabrication bench, we of course need to figure out how to squeeze it in here. And I think temporarily, just so that we can get a general assessment of the size, we are going to go ahead and just squeeze the electric lathe in right here. Shouldn't be too terribly difficult. And then we will simply place a fabrication bench down right here. This is in no way an optimal setup, but it is what we have and what we are going to do. Now we'll actually rotate the electric lathe now that I've seen how this works. That way nobody has to try to crawl over a bench, slowing them down ever so slightly. But once this is built, we should be able to see if we can build a satellite with it. If we can, then that is what we will do. And speaking of building things, our vehicles are done upgrading, once again. And for the Highwayman, upgrading its speed is of importance, as right now it goes 9.2 tiles per second, and we'd like to get it at least somewhat close to the Mule's 10 tiles a second. And for the Roadkill, we will simply give it more cargo capacity. Not that it really needs it, it doesn't haul a lot of cargo, but it never hurts to have a little bit of extra cargo. And for the mules, I think we are actually going to go for fuel efficiency by giving them both the fuel consumption upgrade, which will require us to make 4 car exhausts. And in the meantime, though, it looks like our constructors are just about done with the ideology room. Unfortunately, I have found I cannot actually build the concrete reliquary right here, because it interferes with the lectern. So we'll need to push that wall back a little bit, but don't need to worry about that right now since we don't even have a relic. So, minimal concern there. And there it is, our very own fabrication bench. And indeed, this is where we make satellites. Very good. Let's go ahead and queue up a relay satellite. Not too sure how we launch these, but that seems like the one we need to start with. Should give us communication, it says. Not too sure what kind of communication, but, well, we'll find out soon enough. And there we go. Reliquary number 2 is finished. Now, of course, we do still need to actually go and get our ideology relics, but that is a quest for another day. Now, our constructors need a little bit more work. Something to do. And I've decided on our next big project, we are going to expand over here. But, as you can see, there is all of this mud and water, which is why we will be building some moisture pumps. And we're going to put that on the list. There we go. We will be expanding west. Now, moisture pumps, for those who do not know, kinda suck, if I'm being honest. As you can see, they have a pretty decent radius. This isn't how they start out. They start out at the pump, and then slowly but surely work their way out. Like I said, kinda suck. But that is fine, because we are not in a rush. So we will build multiple. We will put one here, here, one right here, one here, and finally one here. And that will be our little moisture pump setup. And of course, we now need to run power out there, which we will do through hidden conduits. Which, in theory, at least, should not be shot. So only the moisture pumps themselves will be at risk of being blown up. And that should do for the power line setup. Now, that will take a while to both build and pump out all the water, but it will be done eventually. And in a similar vein, we are going to do pretty much the exact same thing down here. And speaking of our mouflons, wow, we have a lot. 41 of them, in fact. The fact that they're not all dying of malnutrition is astounding. And we're not going to worry about it, because we don't need to. Never mind, we do need to. I did not realize we are out of meat, which means we are out of grilled meals. In that case, we need to unsuspend butchering creatures, as we do have a handful sitting in there. Oh, and apparently we have some thrumbos on the map. Very interesting. We may hunt those. But before we try hunting anything, let's try and deal with our overpopulation problem. I think we might need to set up an auto slaughter finally. Let's do a total maximum of adults of 10 gray-coated mouflons, 2 males. And that is what the auto slaughter for the gray-coated mouflons will be. For the cows, we will do a maximum of 4, with 1 adult male and 3 adult females. And we'll let them go ahead and do that auto slaughtering and see where that gets us. Now, going back to our expansion, There is one more thing I want to do, that being our wall. Now, obviously, we can't expand our wall in this direction just yet, but what we can do is upgrade it. See, turns out we are now at the level of technology where we can build armored walls, of which we can build them out of rebar concrete, which gets us 2,000 hit points of armor, which is equivalent to a castle wall. But it comes with the additional bonus of being nearly completely resistant to explosives and breaching tools, unlike a castle wall. And we are going to start setting that up right here, because this section of the wall cannot be doubled up. So it needs to be reinforced as soon as possible. And that will give our constructors just another little project to work on, alongside setting up our giant moisture pump systems. But speaking of defense, what about our offense? We are going to also start working on a field cannon. Why a field cannon? Simple. 35 world tile range. I want to see if we can use this to launch nuclear bombs at a distance. If we can, that will save us a lot of risk, but if not, no big deal. We can have some artillery support whenever we launch an attack at our neighboring tribes. And the satellite is complete. Now, how exactly do we launch that? I'm going to assume we put it in a cargo transport pod, and then that allows us to launch it. So let's go ahead, Skypanese. Please come build our first spacecraft, and we'll have to see if this works. But while Skypanese is working on that, we have finished carapace armor. So next up, specialized armor, because I really want to get to the heavy carapace armor. That's the stuff that gives us the real protection. Alright, our cargo pod is now built. Let's go ahead and load in our relay satellite module. And then we will see just what this does for us. Also, apparently, everything on our map is now dead. Horrifying. There is not a single piece of green anywhere. The long night is really hurting us now. But that does not matter, because we are going to launch our relay satellite as soon as we get enough fuel in the launcher. We need 200. Go ahead, do that. And now that it is properly fueled, let us launch our relay satellite into orbit. Now the question is, how do we do this? It seems to want me to target a world tile, but I don't want to. I want to send it into space. Well, I suppose let's target a world tile and hope it goes into space. Alright. And it is launching into orbit. There it goes. And is it now in orbit? I do not see it. Well, I'm not sure if that worked or not. So I suppose we're just going to have to wait and see. And German has done it. There it is. Our very first nuclear warhead. Beautiful. And that means we can go ahead and check off build nuclear power and weapons. Unfortunately, we can't click build space program as we have not actually successfully launched anything into space just yet. So that will have to wait, unfortunately. But with that nuclear warhead built, testing it will have to wait until the next episode because I'm leaving this episode off here. We have made a good bit of progress. We have built a new church. We have begun work on our moisture pumps to expand our walls. And we have our very own nuclear warhead. Unfortunately, the long night's effects have really come and hit us hard now, seeing as, well, there is not an ounce of green left on our map. We might have to invest in some sun lamps soon, just to help our food production. But nothing bad really happened, and, well, we have the power of the atom now. So, with all that said and done, I will see you all in the next episode.